Condition always send me into a conniption. It's no fun to hit a bond. I trained a ton to hit a home run. The reruns of conditions always send me into a conniption. It's no fun to hit a bond. I trained a ton to hit a home run. The reruns of conditions always send me into a conniption. It's no fun to hit a bond. I trained a ton to hit a home run. The reruns of conditions always send me into a conniption. I'm gonna pull your position. I will not be outrun. I will not be outrun. I will not be outrun. I want to be face to face with the guy at second base. And there's so much at stake as I slide into home plate. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be staring at myself on a computer screen for you all tonight. My name is Mike Block, and I'm very excited for this performance to benefit a very special place, Fallingwater, the UNESCO World Heritage House designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. They started construction in 1935, and I think Justin, if I'm correct, they started the guest house in 1939. Essentially, it was done by 1940, so it's been many years. The Justin I'm referring to is Justin Gunther, the director of Fallingwater. Justin, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly because we haven't actually met in person yet. We've been communicating for almost a year now. Tonight's performance was originally not supposed to be on the internet, believe it or not. I was supposed to be playing inside of Fallingwater, and I was going to be playing in front of the fireplace. And I'm trying to use some multimedia things here in order to maximize the excitement. And I want you all to imagine, as I was visualizing what it would have felt like to perform at Fallingwater, I realized that there is water constantly flowing right under the house. And so I was expecting that actually there might be like a hush of water, flowing water throughout the whole performance. And I live in Boston, and it might rain tonight. So if that happens, it will hopefully merely make this all the more authentic. Before I continue on, I just want to check and make sure the audio and visuals are coming through okay for everybody. So let me know if there's any issues. I've been trying to adapt to this new reality of remote performance. The first two pieces of music I played were essentially the oldest and one of the newest things ever written for cello. The first piece was by Domenico Gabrielli and is from his set of Richard Carr. That is literally the oldest manuscript that has cello written as the intended instrument, violoncello. And so I paired that. I went into an original song, which in the grand scheme of things is one of the newest things ever written for cello. So I'm going to spend the rest of this little performance trying to fill in the gaps between the oldest and the newest. One of the kinds of music that I grew up playing is Bach. Raise your hand if you like Bach. I grew up playing Bach, and I actually released an album of the complete Bach cello suites just earlier this year. You can check that out. It's called Step Into the Void. And I'm going to play for you a single movement from the 6th cello suite by Bach. I'm going to perform for you the Allemande. Of special note, I should say, this movement I recently recorded a video for my online series called Bach in the Bathroom. And for the past number of years, I've been recording Bach in the bathrooms of the finest concert halls. And, the acoustics are really nice. And so you can check that out at bachinthebathroom.com. And, but this most recent version was the COVID version. I did it at home. But I was playing this recently and wanted to share it with you all. I was really excited at the idea of playing Bach in the bathroom at Fallingwater. But as I've understood, the Fallingwater bathrooms are actually lined, the walls are lined with cork. It's not like a tile bathroom. So I actually think the acoustics would be pretty dreadful in there. But when I do finally make it there, I'm going to do it anyway. Anyway, that's a whole bunch of talking. Thank you all for listening, checking this out. You can see that link at the bottom. Donate at fallingwater.org/donate/give once. They have some, not prizes, but some benefits that you'll get if you donate. And so please check that out. I'm gonna reach forward to. Actually, no, I can use my mouse. I'm gonna reach to my mouse here, and we're gonna move on with the show. Thank you all. Thank you all. Well, I'd love to sing you all another song here. Kind of a contemporary of Frank Lloyd Wright. You know, the greatest cellist of the 20th century was a special man, a special musician, Pablo Casals. And there's actually, as luck would have it, there's a pretty sweet Boston-based cello community. There's a bunch of music schools here, a good symphony, and so where those things happen, you know, there's cellists. And so what happened last October, a bunch of us cellists in Boston got together thanks to the Celebrity Series, a really fantastic performing arts presenter here, and we did a whole tribute weekend to Pablo Casals. And the first concert was a recreation of his first concert program that he toured on his very first tour of America. And so we played, you know, Bach Third Cello Suite, and different people played different, you know, pieces from that evening. I played a Saint-Saëns Allegro Appassionato, but I also luckily had the opportunity to write a song inspired by Casals to sing at this event. And as a matter of fact, one of the cellists here, one of my bosses, I have many bosses. One of my bosses is the great Spanish Catalan cellist Luis Claret, and he is the chair of the strings department at New England Conservatory where I teach. He knew Casals personally, and in fact, Casals was his godfather. And so I had the honor and stress of singing this song immediately before Luis performed. But it was a really special event to be a part of, and it was really just meaningful for me to kind of dive back into Casals' legacy, and I read his memoir. And so what I did is I stole almost all of the lyrics for this song from Casals himself, quotes that I found sprinkled throughout his memoir. This is a song called When the Birds Sing Along in the Morning. When you grow up, you will see machines that fly, but will they ever build a way to save ideas that die? Ooh. Ooh. A sense of sunlight, the sound of the sea was the beginning of me. Even grown men cry to be free, dreaming of what could be. But each day I'm reborn, each day I begin again. The music is never the same when the birds sing along in the morning. Ooh, doo, 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 One ought to think of one as a leaf on a tree. In the autumn you will see the heart is a refugee. But each day I reborn, each day I begin again. The music is never the same when the birds sing along in the morning. Doo, 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 doo. My fish waits for me in the river that passes, in the current I see, in a ways of reflection. My fish waits for me, but each day I'm reborn. Each day I begin again. The music is never the same. When the birds sing along in the morning, each day I'm reborn. Each day I begin again. The music is never the same. When the birds sing along in the morning. Thank you. I don't know if you can hear it, but it just started raining outside. I don't know if these microphones can pick it up, but for me it's adding to the effect of imagining that I'm at Fallingwater. I've got a couple other pictures. I feel like I should just show them because I want you all to really imagine what we're talking about here. Front, you know, depending on whether you're walking down the driveway from the guest house or driving from below, or you know, all of the views of the house are different. And obviously, you know, what makes this house special is it's kind of Frank Lloyd Wright's desire to design a house that blended in with the hillside and looks like it had always been there, and it didn't necessarily change the environment. And so actually, you know, there's many parts of Frank Lloyd Wright's art that inspires me. I think part of it for me is also that he didn't just build the houses, design the houses, but he would design furnitures and lamps to go in the house. And this idea that he was really crafting the entire experience of you know, those who are spending time in the house was really inspiring, and probably in some way has been a reason that I've found myself wanting to sing and play, so that I can do things all by myself that you know, that I can kind of try and craft with as much thoughtfulness as Frank Lloyd Wright himself. And so I want to show you another picture. Actually, I have been to Fallingwater one time when I was 12, and I had a sweet pair of Reebok pumps. You got to check out this picture. I'm showing you that is because this next piece, I'm going to do an improvisation inspired by an element of the living room in Fallingwater. So the steel frames of the windows evoke sort of the traditional Japanese screens that are often painted with scenes of nature. And as the younger Kaufman, I think, remarked that they had these essentially built-in Japanese screens of the house that would change with the seasons and with the day. And so they kind of, it was this beautiful way that Frank Lloyd Wright was literally framing the view in this sort of Japanese aesthetic. And so I would like to improvise on a traditional Japanese tune called Sakura Sakura. It's a very famous tune. It's about the cherry blossoms of the trees. And I'm actually gonna let you look at the living room while I improvise. And I want you to sort of imagine what I'll be thinking about as I improvise is that passage of time of having the ability to just sit and watch out the window through a day or through a season, and kind of imagining the subtle but constant changes that the windows would frame. So I'm going to get that picture up for you. I'll do a little more improvising with that thought in mind. Now you've seen the windows, so we'll just have to imagine that. Thank you all. Glad you guys like that picture of those windows. I'm always trying to find new ways to connect with you all, and now we know that when I show the picture, you don't get the audio. You missed a lot of really, really funny things I was saying when I was showing the other pictures, but I could never recreate them. You just have to know in your heart that there was some pretty sweet, commentary. Anyway, let's move on. So one of the other things that I appreciate about Frank Lloyd Wright is, he, in addition to incorporating inspiration from around the world, he actually had this vision of creating a distinctly American style of architecture, not something that was derivative of Europe particularly. And so, through the course of his career, he had many styles, periods. There was the prairie style. In fact, in my Frank Lloyd Wright house concert tour last year, I got to perform twice at the Kankakee Bradley House in Kankakee, Illinois. And that house is such a gorgeous example of the prairie style home. And as I understand it, it was actually the first of the prairie style homes. Later in Frank Lloyd Wright's life, he coined this term, or he used a term that was coined to define something distinctly American from the U.S. called Usonian. And so this idea of Usonian architecture, finding something authentic to where we come from. And so musically speaking, there's a lot of options, but I thought it would be fun to sing you something distinctly American, something bluegrass. Are there any bluegrass fans out there tonight? I can't tell. If you're unsure if you're a bluegrass fan, most likely you were unable to restrain yourself from going, woo, the moment you heard the word bluegrass. So I'm going to sing you a great bluegrass song by the great Peter Rowan. Woo. He was in the band with the Darth Vader of bluegrass himself, Mr. Bill Monroe. Ow. And I'm going to mash this tune up with an old-time fiddle tune called Glory in the Meetinghouse. This medley I recorded and is actually the title track of a folk album I released last year called Walls of Time. And yeah, I see all the woos coming in now. There's a little bit of a delay, so keep them coming. It'll help keep me going. That album featured, this track featured Zachariah Hickman on the bass and the great Bruce Molsky on fiddle. This is Walls of Time. Ow! 1, 2, 3. Across the mountains and down the alleyway below, it sweeps the grave of my darling. When I die, that's where I wanna go. Lord, send the angels for my darling and take her to that home on high. I wait my time out here on a throne and come to you when I die. I hear a voice out in the darkness. It calls, it whispers through the pines. I know it's my sweetheart calling. I hear her through the walls of time. Lord, send the angels for my darling and take her to that home on high. I wait my time out here on a dove and come to you when I die. Our names are carved upon the tombstones. I promised you before you died, our love will live forever, darling. When we rest side by side, Lord, send the angels for my darling and take her to that home on high. I wait my time out here on a dove and come to you when I die. And come to you when I die. And come to you when I die. Woo! Ow! Hopefully there was a few woos and woes and even an ow that emanated, from your body without any conscious control. Thank you all. Let's see, how are we doing for time? Yeah, we're doing all right. So, I'm gonna skip ahead. I'm gonna sing a special song that is actually a song what I'm stumbling over is this idea that I ruined two songs simultaneously for this next medley. I play in a very special ensemble called the Silk Road Ensemble, which was founded and directed for many years by the great Yo-Yo Ma, who, if you don't know his music, you should check him out. He's really great. What's special about the Silk Road Ensemble is it brings musicians from across the world together. And so we have musicians from Japan, China, India, Syria, Spain, Iran, and Kansas. I am from Kansas. So it's very global. And one of my really good friends in this group is the tabla player from New Delhi, India, Mr. Sandeep Das. And as luck would have it, Sandeep and I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and we both moved to Boston the same month, totally coincidentally. So we did what anyone would do. We started a cello tabla duo, which is not a thing. There is no music for cello and tabla. So we, had to create our own concert program. And so early on, I asked him if there was an Indian song that I could learn. And he immediately pointed me to a beautiful bhajan, a spiritual song called Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram. And I wanted to learn it. It's very famous in India, partly because it was Gandhi's favorite song. And so while attempting to learn it, realizing that I was going to have to sing in Hindi next to Sandeep and make a complete fool out of myself, I decided, well, maybe I'll mash it up with an American gospel song, a spiritual song coming from a different place, and finding something that had some overlapping sentiment. So so I hear that you guys can hear some of the thunder. Yeah, it's really starting to rain. So hopefully that's adding to the experience. Anyway, so this is a mashup of two tunes. The Indian tune, Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram, and the American gospel song I settled on is by Hank Williams, called Where the Soul Never Dies. So, if you're a fan of American gospel music or a fan of Indian bhajans, this medley is guaranteed to make both of you slightly uncomfortable. I'm going to ruin two styles simultaneously. This is Where the Soul Never Dies by Hank Williams and Raghupati Raghava Rajaram. You will know which is which. going to check out these comments here. I am definitely going to read through them later, so please say hi. It's always nice to hear where people are from or how you're feeling. It's really the only way to try and connect with you all, so thanks all for watching tonight. And if you haven't already, please donate to Fallingwater via this link. Ooh, there's some more thunder. Hopefully it will maintain falling water tonight and not falling roof. But falling water, well, speaking of falling roofs, there's no falling roofs at Fallingwater. I'm not announcing anything, but they do have, ongoing care of the house plus some renovations planned, as I understand it, that are all on hold during this shutdown. They're unable to do the work, let alone earn the revenue required to make the work possible through tours and whatnot. So if you donate, there's some benefits that can come your way, and so you can go to that site and check that out, please. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to the chance to play in person at Fallingwater. I think what's particularly cool for me is, so the whole reason I have this connection to Frank Lloyd Wright is because as a kid I thought I was going to be an architect. I was really inspired by this idea of designing things, and largely houses, and I think that inspiration was a big part because of Frank Lloyd Wright. And now that I did commit to being a musician, it's cool to understand that, Frank Lloyd Wright, he had a big appreciation for music. He would often have dedicated music spaces in his houses. He even designed that very cool string quartet music stand where it's 4 different, place settings for music all in a circle, kind of perfectly designed for a string quartet to rehearse or perform in the home. And Frank Lloyd Wright's father was actually a musician and composer and educator as well. He wrote some music, and so just the awareness of that compositional mindset was a part of Frank Lloyd Wright's design. And often in classical music communities, we might talk about great composers making great decisions. A piece of music, much like a house or a building, is the result of a series of decisions, some big, some small. And for a composer, after you write the first phrase, the question is, should the melody go up? Should it go down? Should I repeat the first phrase? Should I change the chords? Which instrument should play that phrase? And so on and so on. There's just so many decisions. And, composers, some decisions they'll labor over, and others are just kind of subconscious. They don't even realize they made a decision. Maybe it was just an assumption they had. And so I was thinking about this and wanting to see if I could tell the story of a piece of music, making different decisions than the composer made. And so I took a very famous piece by Bach, the Prelude of the first cello suite. You'll recognize it. It goes like this. It's beautiful. And so what I did is I kind of analyzed it, and every time Bach went up, I went down. Every time he went left, I went right. Every time he went red, I went triangle. And so I tried to create this bizarro world version of the first Bach cello suite. Just gonna adjust that there. And so as I was thinking about this, if I was creating this inverted version of the Bach cello suite, one of the decisions Bach would have made, maybe just on an assumption, is that the cellist would have used a bow. So I will not use a bow for this. This is the opposite of what a good composer would do. This is my Bizarro World version of Bach's Prelude in G major. Thank you all. I'm just going to play you one more song for you all. Thank you so much for listening. It feels really great to get to play for some people virtually in this environment. And I really want to thank Justin and everybody at Fallingwater for giving me this opportunity, for saying, instead of just canceling, why don't we do something? And so that's much appreciated, given everything else that's not able to happen. So again, I'll put up that link if you're able to donate for Fallingwater. I can't wait to visit it myself when it's safe, and hopefully we'll be able to have a special event there. The other part, a lot of what I do musically is, I try and find inspiration from different cultures or different times, and but I think also a big part of, why I feel connected to what Frank Lloyd Wright did in his life is this idea that he was bringing influences in, but trying to make something personal and unique to himself. And so for me, amidst all of the kinds of music I've studied and performed over the years, I've always been writing my own songs, just kind of my own, pop style contemporary songs, kind of, from the kind of music that I was listening to in high school and college and beyond. It's, there's a whole lot that I enjoy expressing and getting out in just, some simple songs. So I'm going to end this performance with an original song. This, actually, if you listen closely to the lyrics, it is shaming you into donating in a weird roundabout way. But this song is called Tenfold, and if you want to check out any more of my music, look at that. I've got a website. Please check it out. There's all sorts of music you can purchase and support, the creation of more music that way. Thanks again for listening. This last song is called Tenfold. Thanks again so much for watching and making it through all of these technical difficulties. I hope it sounded and looked okay. All musicians now are kind of self-employed sound engineers. So thanks again for Fallingwater for having me. Justin, thanks again. And this one is called Tenfold. Thank you. Whoa. She's looking at me so patiently, quietly waiting. Could you just forgive so I can just live? No need to dwell, I told myself. Whoa. I made time for this, but not for that. Briefly acknowledge you, then turn right back. What if all the things I did instantly reversed the benefit you instead? What if all that I withheld would return to you tenfold? No matter how rich, can't get that camel through the needle. What if all that I withheld would return to you tenfold? Oh. I got my reasons why. I told myself, what if all the things I did instantly reversed the benefit you instead? What if all that I withheld returned to you tenfold? No matter how rich, can't get that camel through the needle. What if all that I withheld returned to you tenfold? Oh, return to you tenfold. All of the things that we desire, all of the things that we admire, surely there is more to the game as our prayers climb higher and higher. All the things that we aspire, what does it all truly require? Surely there is more to the game as our prayers climb higher and higher. What if all the things I did instantly reversed the benefit to instead? What if all that I withheld returned to you tenfold? No matter how rich, can't get that camel through the needle. What if all that I withheld returned to you tenfold? Oh, return to you tenfold. Thanks again for watching. Thank you all. Hope you have a good night, and please consider donating to Fallingwater if you haven't already, and hope to see you next time. Take care. Thank you all.